Well, good evening, everybody, and welcome to Friday Nights at the French Laundry, our virtual cuisine, all about California politics. For the main entree, as always, the recall of Governor Gavin Newsom. I tell you, I'm in with so many people in studio tonight, it's almost too hard to count. One thing that wasn't hard to count this week was our official signatures, and we'll get into that in 1 second. But I'm accompanied in studio tonight by the main cook of the recall, Orrin Heatley.
Glad to be here.
Our cashier, Randy Economy.
I have my eye patch on and I'm focused, ready to go.
That is good to know.
Get the money out, baby.
We're also accompanied tonight by very honored Assemblyman Kevin Kiley.
Thank you, sir. Pleasure to be here.
That was your cue, Kevin. You did that perfectly. And Eric Early.
Great being with you guys tonight, as usual.
I want to say I'm honored and slightly scared. It's the first time I've been in a room with two attorneys in a really long time. We're also accompanied tonight by about 3 or 4 different cameras, if you will. We're being filmed, and the reason is because of a very exciting week for the recall. And before we get to our guest, Leo Terrell, in a few minutes, I also want to say we need your calls at 1-800
222
5222 because this is your show, sponsored by recallgavin2020.com, which means it's the people's voice up and down the coast, all over California. So we need donations to keep us on the air, to keep the voice of the people going. Please call in tonight. This is your show. But, Orrin, I think we first ought to get to the really big announcement that kind of the Secretary of State snuck in a little bit on us this week.
No, it was slid in quietly, and it kind of went unnoticed. The media hasn't paid much attention to it, but it is one of the most important announcements in our state's history in a long time.
Kevin, was there any noise in the legislature? Did the poppers go off? Did Gavin come and make any noise from the big balcony or something?
The big balcony.
Well, I'm assuming there's a big balcony.
There's a lot of balconies up in Sacramento.
They have the sound pretty insulated there. So if you did, I'm not sure I heard it. But there was, certainly when the threshold was crossed, the level of interest, I think, peaked. And there's a lot of folks in the legislature who, are not necessarily fans of this governor themselves, but are a bit, I'd say, apprehensive about the thought that the people will now have more direct say in our state government.
And what we're leading up to is the people of California gathered 1,719,943,000 verified, validated signatures in the bank. And this, whether you like it or not, sorry, team, I had to say that, is going on the ballot.
Amazing.
Randy, you want to weigh in on this a little bit before we check out of this segment?
This week was a week for all of us just to I don't want to say the word celebrate, but it was a moment for us to take pause and to realize that we had done something so extraordinary. And I'm not saying we, as in meaning us here behind these microphones. I'm talking about we the people. And the thousands of volunteers that we had to be able to take it to, do something that was bigger than ourselves. And I think that's the historical nature of what we've done this week.
And I'm so proud of everybody here. And I want to give Eric, I want to give you a chance to weigh in. You've been with us since the beginning, like everybody here in this room. How do you feel about it?
I'm so honored to be with you guys. You've performed really magic. This has been a shot across the bow, not only in California, but around the country and possibly around the world, that the people of America are coming back to take control of what is theirs, which is our government, from these people who are presently in control who forgot the 4 words, we the people, a long time ago.
Since when did the people become the underdog?
Mm-hmm.
Wow, that's interesting when you put it that way. And I'd like to feel, Orrin, that we're not the underdog anymore. And for everybody out there, if you're just starting to tune in to Friday Nights of the French Laundry, 2 things. 1, where you been? Second off, if you haven't been keeping track of this, when this started many months ago, it is the largest initiative in American history. Get your arms around that. The largest initiative ever in the history of the United States, simply due to the size of this state. And, Orrin, what is it also? The largest volunteer effort in American history.
It absolutely is. This has been a monumental endeavor. This is the largest ever attempted petition drive in our nation's history. It's only the second largest in the world, second only to Brexit.
That's unbelievable.
Now, I want everybody to think about that. As I'm surrounded by cameras tonight, as I'm surrounded by my honored people in studio, in addition to my co-hosts, but they're with me
your
every
loved
week.
ones.
Yes, my loved ones.
Yes.
And don't turn a blind eye to
Come
Randy.
on, man. Don't turn a blind eye to me. Look, another news crew.
Gather really this moment in history, everybody. Gather the fact that the people of California are going to have a say in what happens due to direct democracy. Gather for a second what we've accomplished. And we're going to talk a lot about a lot of things on the show tonight, as we always do. You're going to hear a lot of voices, a lot of bulbs flashing. But for everybody out there, take a deep breath, because we have done it. We have accomplished what nobody ever thought we would with few resources that we have and still have today.
I don't want to give people a false sense of security. There's still a lot of work to be done.
It's like, going through, it's like today's the first day of the rest of our lives. And it sounds as hokey as it does. It truly is. I mean, now the campaign enters to a new phase. And even though the spotlight is still going to be continued on, quote unquote, the movement, it's going to start focusing on those individuals who are going to step forward to want to become the next governor of California. And that's going to be very fun to sit back and watch. And I think at the end of the day, the scoreboard's going to be that the people are going to win and we're going to get a new governor out of this situation.
It's exciting to note that this is more than just the recall of a governor, but really a chapter in California history. And there's going to be a lot of talk about candidates. But this conversation has to be about how we can fix and unite people of California from all parties, from all denominations, from all diversity, to get together at the table to take California back with things that we have in common. I'd like to roll to an early break to our producer and roll back in with Leo Terrell in a couple minutes here. It's exciting to have Leo on the show. He's got great history. Orrin knows him fairly well, and so do the people at KABC. I want you to take for a moment before we roll out of this segment, take a deep breath. When we roll to commercial, give yourself a fist bump, California, because we have done it. It's Friday nights at the French Laundry, KABC 790. Recall Gavin2020.com. Welcome back, everybody, to Friday nights at the French Laundry. We just announced history-making news that came out kind of quietly on Wednesday. They tried to slip one in, that we have done what nobody thought could be done and qualified this for the recall ballot. I'd like to roll here to our guest in 1 second, Leo Terrell.
This
Leo,
is crazy, Mike. How many members of the media do we have here
the
tonight?
studio's getting so
I
packed,
think it's
I'm
like
getting
the
overwhelmed.
405 freeway on a Friday afternoon.
You know what really worries me a
What's
little
that,
bit, Randy?
Mike? What?
I have a lot of lights on me, and two attorneys in the room.
You have a lot of what on you?
A lot of lights on me from the press and
Oh,
two
I thought you-
attorneys
okay.
in the room.
I
It's
brought a
little bit
subpoena
suspicious.
with me,
Recovering
Mike, just
attorney.
to slap you with it.
Who brought a
I thought you'd
subpoena?
enjoy
Eric
that.
Gurley brought a
Yeah,
subpoena?
I figured Mike wanted to be slapped
Oh,
with a
my
subpoena,
gosh.
so I brought one.
We even have the Epic Times here tonight.
That's right. We have the Epic Times
One of my
here.
favorite
Mine, my
publications.
favorite
Fox
publications.
may be coming in later. We've got two camera people because this, everybody, is a historic night. Orrin, I'd like you to welcome our first guest, Leo Terrell. Leo, how are you doing tonight?
Man,
Leo,
thank
thank
you
you
very
so much
having
for
me.
joining us. As
My
you
pleasure.
know, I'm a fan.
Thank you very much for the kind words. I'm glad to be on the program, and congratulations on the certification.
I'm honored to have you on here, Leo, because you've really got quite a history in defending people and doing some amazing things in media. And I'd like to give us your opinion, get your opinion as kind of a veteran of the space, for lack of a better term, is to what this means out of all the things you've covered and done over the years.
Well, I'll tell you right now, this is really a historic time in California because this recall movement is an opportunity to really change California. Man, last year, in my entire life, I lived in California my entire life, public schools, work. But last year, because of the management, the mismanagement of this state by the governor. It was the first time in my entire life I wanted to leave California.
Wow.
And it was the first time ever I wanted to leave because I saw what he was doing. He was using his executive power to destroy not only the economy, not only the schools, but to destroy the will of the people of the state of California. Mm-hmm. And this recall is a "we don't like you, Gavin" response, not an extreme group that he tried to portray. These are Americans who live in California, the barber shop, the nurseries, the coffee shop. These were just everyday people who were just fed up with Gavin Newsom and the way he mismanaged the pandemic.
So true. Leo, this is Eric Early talking. It's great talking to you again. Listen, what you just said about how he destroyed the will of the people, that is what he did in so many respects. I mean, one example, I know a great legal immigrant to this country built up a very well-known restaurant, and they were practically on their hands and knees begging to be allowed open in certain parts of the year to keep themselves going, their restaurant going, their staff going. They had worked their whole life to get to this point of success, and they got nothing from our government in the state except one fine after another after another.
Eric, you're absolutely right. He had an attitude where he did not care.
Exactly.
He was drunk with power. And, I mean, the story you just told, there were hundreds of those stories throughout the state, and he did not care. And this has been the attitude of this particular Democratic governor, in which he wielded tremendous control over 40-plus million people at the expense of, again, destroying the economy, putting our kids in harm's way by basically keeping them out of school. But for this successful recall, this economy is opening up because he knows he's in trouble, deep trouble.
Well, you know, there are a lot of things that he can't unwind, okay? I mean, he's taken action, just like you said, to destroy the state. One of the things that goes unmentioned is that, you know, his wholesale release of prisoners from our prison system, that's going to have, you know, consequences that we're going to be, you know, feeling for years, decades, a lifetime for some. And one of the issues that goes unmentioned is the fact that he's depleted our CDC fire crew, and now he's closing the Susanville High Desert Prison. He's closed fire camps. We're going into a fire season, and we no longer have this valuable resource available to CAL FIRE or others. We're gonna have to fill that void somewhere, and you know, I fear that we're gonna fill that void, thousands and 10,000 CDC fire crew with unionized labor. What do you think about that?
Oh, absolutely. Listen, you just listed a laundry list of issues in which this government has used this pandemic to just mismanage this economy and this state. You know, what's dear to my heart, being a former school teacher, is that this man is in bed with the teachers' unions and with any union. And as a result, you know, education is the key to breaking the poverty cycle. I'm on this program because I got a good education in public school. Gavin Newsom doesn't care because he is dependent on the unions, the teacher unions, which have basically kept our kids out of school. Yep. They're going to lose those 2 or 3 years of education. That's going to have a rippling effect on their careers in the future. This guy is just a disaster, but he does not care because he's ultimately concerned about power.
And you know, one of the great ironies is that the kids of lesser means are the ones that have been kept out of school. The people of families who have the means, including Gavin Newsom's kids, have been in school for months and months. So they always claim they're helping the poor, the downtrodden, the people of lesser means, the people of color, and they're destroying another generation of kids as we speak.
You are absolutely correct.
If we had an effective school choice program in California, then,
you know what?
Then people of lesser means may be able to send their kids to private schools like those that Gavin Newsom's kids attended.
Absolutely.
You know what? Honestly, if I was running for any office, my biggest goal is to have school choice and break up these damn unions. I'm sick of them.
But Leo, this is Randy Economy. But you know, the thing is that we're trying not to make this campaign about Democrats versus Republicans. It's got to be about Californians who are just so disenfranchised with their government. And I know that watching you this week on Fox News, it almost brought a tear to my eye. One of your performances and one of your interviews this week, because I could just see your pride in regards to knowing the fact that something big has happened, and it was made for because of the people. Talk a little bit about that.
Well, I'll tell you right now. I mean, again, this recall petition, this successful recall petition, is a result of Californians. It's not a party. It's not a partisan recall. People care about their quality of life. They care about raising their kids. They care about having a good job. They care about the quality of life. And what I found so refreshing is that this recall petition reflects that. I'm on board. Conservatives, Republicans, Independents, everyone's on board because we want a state that represents the best of California. And we haven't gotten that in 2 years. And we have to regain that. And I'll tell you right now, people like myself and you and everyone listening to this program, we are energized. The Newsom people aren't energized.
That's exciting, man.
Absolutely. Hey, Leo, this is Kevin Kiley. How you doing?
Hi, Kevin.
So I'm glad you decided to stay and you haven't left yet. Let me just say that, first of all. But we just learned today, I don't know if you saw, that California's population declined for the first time in our history this last year. 170 years as a state, our population has grown. It took Gavin Newsom to reach the tipping point. So, we've had this sort of corruption of our politics that's brought California to the precipice for quite a while now. And Gavin Newsom's extraordinary corruption has taken us off the cliff. And I kind of see the recall as a make or break moment for the state in a lot of ways. What do you think?
I think you're 100% correct. Men, we have to break this one-party state. I mean, we got to break this. Yep. And this recall is a chance to break it. And I'll tell you, it is something that California has to get behind. I think we have gotten behind it. But this one-party state has led the situation where Gavin Newsom has all this authority, all this power. People of California got to rise up, stand, vote him out of office, vote in favor of the recall, and that's going to send shockwaves to the Democratic Party.
Leo, this is Mike Netter. What are some ways you think, in addition to the standard ways that we're raising money for, quick pitch at recallgavin2020.com. Hey, I got to throw it in. It's the people that need to get this, that we can help keeping that level of consciousness up over the next 4 months, reminding people. What do you think some of the hottest things are after his king opens the state that we should be telling people about?
That is a powerful question. We have to get the truth out. We have to keep the conversation going because, opening the so-called state on June 15th, that's his smokescreen. That's what he's trying to do, to divert the attention. We have to have the conversation. The people out there speaking in favor of the recall and removing this man has to be out there. I'm talking about in any type of form. Your successful program on Friday, fantastic. But it has to be continuous. And it has to be people speaking the truth about the misery of this state the last 18 months and what we have to do and the opportunity to change it. That's what we have to do.
Hey, Leo, one more thing, too, is I have the best job of the recall group because I get to be the guy who is the media guy who gets to be in front of the camera, behind the camera, and all that type of good stuff. But one question I was asked this week was, if it's good enough to be able to open up schools and restaurants, why can't we open up our polling places for people to go back in the fall to actually go cast their ballot instead of going away with this crazy all mail-in ballot situation?
Oh, there's no excuse not to. But again, this is the Democrats hijacking the entire political system during the pandemic. They've used the pandemic as an excuse to consolidate more and more power. That's why people in California, they look at Florida, they look at Texas, and they're scratching their heads and saying, what's going on? And I'll tell you right now, it is a Democratic obsession to just obtain power. And more importantly, I honestly believe there's a disconnect between Democratic leadership and the Democratic voter. Because
I agree with that, absolutely.
They reject the Newsom plan. That Democratic leadership is only interested in power. And that has to be pointed out.
I want to roll this one to Kevin because Kevin's actually in the legislature, and it was interesting in his book. how he wrote how I think Gavin Newsom is even attached from the Democratic legislature. Isn't that what you commented, Kevin?
Well, yeah, in a lot of ways, Newsom has not been particularly popular, even among legislators. Like the leaders of our legislature did not endorse him; they endorsed some guy who didn't even have a chance in 2018. And he kind of came into office, Newsom did, and thought it was beneath him almost to work with the legislature. I mean, Jerry Brown. I mean, there's no fan of Jerry Brown, but he at least would try to build a relationship with you. But for Gavin, he came in and his priority was to get in the national press to try to, clear the path for some presidential run. And then that's what he made COVID all about as soon as it happened. He had this opportunity, he thought, to become a national figure, and that was his main priority. And our state has suffered enormously as a result.
Oh, but he's a dead man walking. His political his national
Not
political
literally.
right.
Come on, Leo.
Not careful, Leo.
We don't want to have the state police here.
People may be listening to this show, actually.
Come on.
No, and I also find it strange, too. And again, I'm not a lawyer like Eric Early is, but it's very strange how he's just then picked the next succession of state officials. I mean, we're not even electing people anymore.
Yeah, this is Eric speaking. First of all, Gavin Newsom, I see in him a terrible communicator.
Oh, he's awful.
This guy,
He's horrible.
He,
Oh, God.
Is he- what's
he-
horrible?
He is so bad. He
Is he-
can't-
is
has
he-
never spoken to state. I get the sense that he never speaks to anybody in the legislature.
Does he use a
where
teleprompter?
Kevin is. He is just, he thinks he's a king. He thinks he's above everybody. His arrogance just comes out of his pores, and
not a good
chickens have come home
communicator.
to roost. Terrible.
He's a horrible communicator. Whoa.
Well, I hope we're communicating with him, because if he doesn't get the message that 2.1 million people don't like him,
The tip
I
of the
really
iceberg,
don't know what
only
to
the
say.
tip
And
of
I'd
the
like
iceberg.
say what?
Tip of the iceberg.
Oh,
of
it's
the
just the
iceberg.
tip of the iceberg. And what's really interesting, Leo, do you mind rolling for one more segment after
Come
this?
on, Leo. Come on.
Come
man.
on.
You know what? You guys are going to get me in trouble because I have to go to a meeting right now.
What
and
kind of meeting? I want
Hey,
details.
you
I
know,
will be in trouble. I just
I'm-
got off of Hannity.
Drop a bigger name.
Leo,
No,
God
no,
bless
no,
you
no.
for joining
Leo,
us.
Leo,
my
we
friend.
appreciate you being on. We'll let you go if we have to, Leo. But we,
Okay, Leo.
I will come back. I will come back.
we're gonna
Oh,
find
leave
you,
a
Leo,
tip.
and make
Did you leave
come
a tip?
back.
He has to leave a tip.
Yeah, you got to leave a
and
tip.
pay the
We'll
check.
cash you out
It's
here
the French
tonight.
Laundry.
You guys are terrible. Thank you. I'm so glad to be on the show.
God bless Leo. Thank you so much.
Thank you
and,
so
we'll
much
talk
for
to you
coming
again
on
soon.
tonight. We appreciate you. We're going to start rolling the break here, but I'd like to stress things that everybody said. 2.1 million people signed this petition. It's the tip of an iceberg. 35% or so of those weren't necessarily the Republican Party, so think about that. I've said this before. I'll say this again. When you call in tonight at 1-800-222-5222, we want everybody to call in. No one unites the state like Gavin Newsom. It's time we recall the new government in our state. It's Friday nights at the French Laundry. RecallGavin2020.com. Welcome back, everybody, to Friday Nights at the French Laundry, where it's always about California politics, and the main entree is, of course, the recall of Gavin Newsom. That was great with Leo. I want to shift the subject a little bit to something that was in the news this last week, which just the figures and things that come out about Gavin continue to amaze me, and that's the behested payments, if I could even say that. Kevin, is this something normal in politics? I got to tell you, this isn't. The figures where Gavin Newsom requests companies to donate $226 million this last year.
Yeah, so the idea is... Oh, go ahead. You had a
No,
I'm just.
it's hard to finish the thought because Jerry Brown, I guess in his entire 8 years, this is from the LA Times, for entire 8 years, had about $19 million requested on his behalf or donated on his behalf. Gavin Newsom in 1 year had $226 million?
Yeah, it's a reflection of just the amount of power that he, aggregated, and the behested payments were clearly linked to that. So the idea of a behested payment is that, let's say you have someone who's donated your campaign or something, they're a supporter of yours, but they've given the maximum amount. Then you say, well, My wife, though, has a charity, and so maybe you can give money to her charity. And so that has to be reported because it's, a favor that's essentially being done, or it's being done at the behest of the politician. And so that is sort of the same thing that's being reported here with Gavin Newsom and the $226 million. Is you take, Facebook or some of these other companies that have given Gavin Newsom's campaign a lot of money, and he said, oh, here's something else you could do for me. We're having these public service announcements. If you could spend millions on that. And it's been reported that some of these public service announcements that were paid for using the behested payment money featured Gavin Newsom himself. And so there's potentially a political benefit there. And then you also look at the fact that a lot of these same companies are then getting no-bid contracts for COVID-related stuff that Newsom is able to award on a no-bid basis precisely because of the state of emergency. And the tangled web of corruption just gets more and more tangled.
It sounds like it's a playbook right out of the Clinton Foundation. Here you have Hillary saying, leave no crisis, let no crisis go to waste. And then and then now you have, the same playbook that they ran with that during the Clinton era.
But Mike, how is this even legal? How, Kevin, Assemblyman Kiley, how is this legal?
Yeah, you're asking me. Ask me. You got two attorneys in the room, for God's sake. I'm not even a real radio show host.
How is this legal?
Randy, I'll jump in on it.
It's like legal bribery.
Behested payments are technically legal, but first of all, the appearance of impropriety, as us lawyers call it, stinks. And frankly, if we had an attorney general in this state who actually gave a damn about investigating corruption, if somebody dug into those payments, dug into how the money's being used, dug into whether he is getting political favors in one way, shape, or form, dug into how money might be coming back to help him in one way, shape, or form, something tells me they would find a lot of things that are totally illegal, frankly.
Is that the new Attorney General, Rob Bonta?
That's the person that Newsom put into office, yes.
I think that a real interesting point here is whether it's election integrity, whether it's these payments, whether it's the no-bid contract, even if they're legal, bordering on the line of it, since we have no opposing forces in government, and Kevin, I'm going to toss this to you in a second, I don't know that the people can really trust the system because didn't you call for an investigation of the no-bid contracts on the legislative floor? What happened there,
of course,
Kevin?
nothing happened. I mean, the legislature's had no interest in investigating that. There's no incentive to.
Nothing to
This is a
see
system
here.
that they benefit from.
Kevin,
But
what happens up there? It's a one-party rule. Can you get anything done up there as a Republican, as a great Republican representative of the people?
Well, I mean, it's difficult, but that's not really even the main problem so much. The problem, more than anything else, is that special interests just completely run the building. They spend a ton of money on campaigns, and frankly, the leading one is the big labor union conglomerates, first and foremost the teachers' unions. They outspend everyone else by a mile. They install the people that they've chosen, and then you have people in the legislature, and as this case may be, the governor's office, whose only real purpose there is to do the bidding of these special interest groups and use the powers of government to reward them, to enrich them. And then, of course, they have even more money to elect even more politicians, and it's round and round we go. And that's how we've gotten to the point in California where we have such a massive amount of tax dollars, such a massive budget that's doubled over the last decade, and yet the quality of life for the average person continues to go down.
It strikes me as so strange that amounts of money that are so out of the norm, like the behested payments, like the no-bid contracts, and nobody, and I'm not saying, I know folks like you in the legislature are blinking, but it is just so strange that Gavin does this almost like, I don't care anymore. Mm-hmm. I mean, it was 2019, I believe, and I talked to the LA Times reporter this week, and I complimented her, and it was interesting. She says, I've been writing the same story for kind of about 5 years on bequested or behested payments. She goes, and normally everybody goes, great. Let's go to the sports page. All right? This is the first time, she goes, that because of the size of the figure, my article made the front page. And I asked her something very interesting. I said, well, where did you get the information? She goes, from the FPPC, information that's out there. And I'm very curious to do a Freedom of Information request, and we're going to get to what those could do later in the show. about the kind of communication that goes on to get this kind of money placed by the governor of our state. I mean, he just doesn't happen to run into somebody at the dinner and go, "Hey, Eric, you're from Blue Shield, right? You got like 20, 30 million you mind giving to my wife's charity? Look at these hors d'oeuvres." I mean, what kind of communication? Well, it's the French Laundry here. I mean, what kind of communication, Eric, is actually quasi-legal where it's not quid pro quo? I don't know the answer.
You need somebody investigating this stuff, and Rob Bonta, his self-appointed attorney general, is not going to investigate anything that Gavin Newsom might be doing that's anything close to corruption, unfortunately. The entire ruling class up there in what I call the Politburo has to be shaken out and replaced by the people, and that comes back to this recall because you have done something that has not been done in American history, frankly. I mean, yeah, they recalled Gray Davis, but this one is, the magnitude is far greater, and Newsom is so arrogant, he's got so much power, and this recall is going to happen, and this change is necessary.
And I want to dwell on these issues tonight deeper and deeper because as we asked Leo Terrell earlier in the show, you know, he's going to try to make people's memory goes, "Oh, what COVID? You know, the gyms are open. Look, I opened the churches." No, the courts did. And Kevin will address that in a little bit, where that's going, next segment. But the reality is, this governor has done and continues to do a lot of things keeping with the menu theme. Look a little bit fishy, don't they, Orrin?
They don't pass the smell test. Not in this kitchen.
You know, what do you guys say we take a call? Because Chris from West LA is calling in on Newsom and corruption, which sounds in line with what we're talking about. Chris.
Hello, Chris.
You're on the air.
Hey, guys. How are you? Congratulations on a truly historic achievement. I am talking to California political royalty this evening. I'm
Thank
thrilled
you, sir.
for you guys. I wanted to raise an issue related to corruption and also the special interests. And this is an issue I know that is going to be near and dear to Assemblymember Kiley's heart, and he can probably riff on this. Newsom, in his budget earlier this year in January, proposed what he's calling a housing accountability unit. He wants to hire 14 or 15 new state deputy attorneys general, and he's going to send them into city council meetings and supervisors meetings and local planning sessions. And they will be there like air marshals in hell. You won't know they're there until they pop up and say, "This isn't what the law says." They will have enforcement powers, and he's going to send his goons, let's call them what they are, to your city council meetings.
You know, Chris, everybody's kind of taking a deep breath, and I've heard of that. That kind of lines into one of the things we're going to talk about next segment, where the Secretary of State was collaborating big government with Facebook and Google and Twitter if they didn't like the posts that are up. And now Gavin is actually, sending, I like that term, I guess goons is a good one, in to monitor our local government in case something is said that his Gavinness might not like. I mean,
Exactly.
how deep and far is California government going to go? Kevin, you want to comment on that?
Yeah, I think, and thanks for the question, Chris. I mean,
Thanks, Chris.
it is, it's very much of a piece. It's consistent with the general trajectory of our government for a long time, which has been to consolidate more and more power in Sacramento, which is, I think, the really important thing to remember about the recall is that what's happened with Gavin Newsom in this COVID era is he's just taken all of the things that were already wrong with the way our government works and just put them on steroids. So we've seen more and more power collapsed into the state capitol, into Sacramento for a long time. And during COVID, that just was fast forwarded to its logical endpoint of one-man rule. And so I think that, you know, to sort of get to Mike's point that, well, if we're moving beyond the COVID era, you know, in theory, then, you know, suddenly the impetus for the recall is going to go away or something. That's not true at all, because what the last year has really just done for a lot of people is cast in very sharp relief, made it very clear all of the problems that were already there to begin with.
And just really quickly, as you guys go to break, one really important point is that they're not just going to be watching, they will have enforcement powers. So Gavin's goons will be able to sue your city councilors if they step out of line, particularly when it comes to the biggest special interest that controls Gavin, which is, of course, the big developers and their allies. So, this is a direct assault, unlike, I think, anything we've seen in this country, certainly in the modern era. This is a direct assault, an imperial assault on local democracy, the cornerstone of our democracy.
And yet, nobody in our state government, like the Attorney General, no one seems to stand up for the people but the people themselves. And we're going to get in a couple seconds to something else that the state of California has done after the break. It's Friday nights at the French Laundry. KABC, contribute now. Keep us on the air. RecallGavin2020.com. Welcome back, everybody, to Friday Nights at the French Laundry. We've just announced that the state of California is facing, or Gavin's facing, a recall election. We gathered 2.1 million signatures. I want to take a second here before we'll and tell you a couple amazing things. We have in the studio tonight a producer named Stephen Barber. And for those of you not familiar, he has done the Apollo 13 monument you can find in Houston. And right now, if you have Amazon Prime, and let's face it, everybody does. If you don't, you're lying. He has right now a documentary on there that literally pulled my heart. It's about the Stars and Stripes, the newspaper. And at the end, you'll almost break into tears at what you see when that one scene with the tattoo. I don't want to spoil it for anybody. It's called The World's Most Dangerous Paper Route. I'm very honored that Stephen's working with Jeff Rodan, who's making a film here, a documentary on the recall. Stephen, give us a couple seconds. Tell us about Vanilla
Absolutely.
Fire.
You can hear me, right?
What?
You guys can hear me,
Loud
right?
and clear.
Yeah, we can
Okay,
hear you
good.
loud and clear.
Yeah, once again, my name's Stephen Barber, and I met Mike about 7-8 months ago. I wanted to come on as a documentary filmmaker, but my hands were a little tied. I was working with NASA and doing some other big stuff, so I just thought I'd kind of concentrate on that. But that's done now. And I have never seen a bigger room of patriots. That's what Vanilla Fire Productions, we've done World War II movies with, Kelsey Grammer, Ed Harris, Josh Brolin, Joe Mantegna, Gary Sinise, some of the biggest guys in town. They've all believed in our projects. This, my friends, is the biggest, most amazing story that's ever come across my plate. So I'm out to implore the executives, because I know there's Ted Sarandos is out there, and Reed Hastings, and Lisa Nishimura, that you guys, Ian Brick, you guys know me. You bought 2 of my films at Netflix back in the day, 2011, 2012. You folks need to greenlight this film. You need to partner with Vanilla Fire Productions. You need to become not Democrats, not Republicans. You need to become Americans, okay? Because this is a great American story. This is David and Goliath. And every single week I get more excited about. I will tell this story with or without Hulu, with or without Netflix, with or without HBO. The story will be told. But it'd be really great if some executive who's listening, and I know there's some out there, Lawrence Bender, over at Band Apart. Let's tell the story of these 3 great men, Randy Economy, Mike Netter, and Oren. I mean, it is a mind-boggling story. I'm happy to be here. Thank you for your time. Let's tell the story of the recall, the French Laundry, Friday night.
And Stephen, I've got to say, too, and I could see it in your eyes when I met you for lunch about 8 months ago. And by the way, I've never been considered a whack job by a Hollywood producer. That should tell you something right there off the bat.
Is that the first thing I said or the second thing?
Well, it might have been the second thing.
It was in the
And
same
you,
sentence,
and you
I
made
think.
me prepay for lunch, which is another sign.
Well,
there.
we had our masks on.
That's
Remember,
right.
we were relegated behind the coffee house. Yeah.
But you have to admit, you didn't. Aren't you amazed by what the people have accomplished? I mean, let's face it. 8 months ago, we had 250,000 signatures, and I seemed pretty confident we were going to get this done because we believed in ourselves. And I think you're asking Hollywood to believe in this story, and we mean that.
Absolutely.
It shows what people can do.
Well, we were on point together because when I first approached NASA to build the monument to the greatest technological achievement in the history of mankind, everybody said it's never been done. It can't be done. That's why it hasn't been done in 50 years. Well, guess what? I got it done. Why? Because I believed in it. The reason you guys got this done is only simple. Same reason. Failure was not an option. You believed in it. And this is the greatest country in the world. As at a pivotal point where we are in America, and there's some darkness going on. If you have an idea, if you have a vision, you cannot fail in this country. It is still the greatest country in the history of the world. And what you guys have done, and once again, I implore Hollywood to contact me at vanillafire.com and partner with me on this story. And Jeff, who's been shooting for a year, we got to get this story. And let the people decide, okay? You guys have a platform there for a reason. Let the people of the world decide what the Gavin Newsom story really is.
The other interesting thing, Mike, is there's a story about the recall, and as one of the guys who's kind of in front of the camera during this whole process, and then there's a story behind the scenes, and it's a story behind the scenes that is so riveting. It's so gut wrenching. It's so raw. It's it's good. It's bad. It's ugly. It's emotional. And I think once people really understand the power of what regular people have done here in California, not necessarily just you and I and Oren and everybody else, but when they know about what the people have done, it's just absolutely, it's mind-blowing.
Well, I'm going to say this again, and I've said this a few times. Oren and I are just like, quote, ordinary people. We have no political experience. The only time I was in TV before, well, I did need 2 attorneys, but that's a story for another day, right? But the reality is, facetiousness aside, this amazing journey, and Randy, you've been on media a while, but I'm sitting tonight with a state assembly person, with a man who ran against Adam Schiff, with a producer, a film producer who actually has some amazing things, has built a monument. For ordinary people, and it's not just me, I mean, for all these volunteers to see this come to fruition, this has been the most amazing journey, not only of my life, but for everybody out there that signed this, for everybody out there that was out there that gathered signatures. You have been part of history. And I really want you to get your arms around that. We have made history.
Oh, yeah.
One last thing. Hollywood, every time I turn on TV, it's sexy with a gun. It's a car crash. More sexy with a gun. More car crashes.
I have an eye patch.
Yeah, there
I'm
you
sexy.
go. And it's enough. I mean, you love the Holocaust. You love doing Holocaust movies. You love Hitler. You have this love affair with Adolf Hitler. There's no reason why we can't tell a great American story here about a failed governor. And, I don't dislike Gavin. I'm going to say a good thing about Gavin Newsom. 2 years ago, he had me in his office with a 100-year-old World War II vet. He gave us an hour of his day. He couldn't have been kinder. He was as nice as he could possibly be, and I was actually kind of turned around at that moment. But he is the slickster. He is mesmerizing. He is, the Ken doll, as our good friend here said. So what I'm asking is anyone who's in power in Hollywood, help me tell this story. This isn't a story about Democrats or Republicans. This is a story about Americans that were failed by their leadership, and the story needs to be told. And let the people decide.
And remember, you can get a hold of Steven through Vanilla Ice.
No, Vanilla Ice was Ice Baby.
Okay.
I'm Vanilla Fire.
Hey,
that's
what do you want?
VanillaFire.com.
Vanilla Fire. So remember, Steven melts it. VanillaFire.com. And if you lose any of that, get a hold of us at recallgavin2020.com. But speaking of people that like people, I'd like to go to Sue from Roseville, who loves hardworking Kevin Kiley. So, Kevin, this call's for you. Sue, how are you doing? Welcome to Friday Nights at the French Laundry.
I am doing so. I'm so thankful for all of you, everybody, the grassroots, everybody that's put this together, because this is so unattainable in the beginning, and it actually is coming to fruition. And so I love Kevin Kiley. Assemblyman Kevin Kiley is the hardest working assemblyman. I mean, he does more in the afternoon than Newsom does in a quarter. So I love Kevin Kiley. And Kevin Kiley, please listen to me. People want you to run for governor. Please, please run. Please run. We love you, Kevin. Please run. So.
Wow.
Well, Kevin, you better respond to that.
How much did you pay her to call in, Kevin?
No, seriously. No.
Thank you so
not
much,
that.
Sue. That is so incredibly
you.
kind of you. You're in Roseville, you said?
Yes, I am. Your district, my friend.
Yes.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Well, that is incredible. But, really, you give me way too much credit. This whole movement is a citizens movement, and it was spearheaded by the three folks in the room, but was fueled by countless volunteers, thousands of volunteers who have been working hard, going out every weekend, a lot of folks, and a lot of people who have never been involved in politics before. So, I feel fortunate to have had the chance to play a small part in this, but it's really been a citizens-led movement from the beginning.
But Kevin, not so fast. Both Kevin and James Gallagher and Eric Early with an election integrity lawsuit. Kevin, you've had the guts to stand up to Gavin Newsom in court, and I know people want to hear some reports on that because you're going to continue that fight, right?
Well, that's right. So, we had our lawsuit back. We filed actually at the beginning of last June. So a few months into this whole thing. And we had a trial. We won. Superior Court in California ruled that Newsom was abusing his emergency powers. Then Newsom rushed to sort of his preferred forum, the 3rd District Court of Appeals. And we had a panel of 3 justices, 2 of whom have worked. Actually, all 3 of whom have worked for California governors. So we finally got our ruling on that a couple days ago. And the justices actually, despite this being such a favorable kind of home court advantage for Newsom, they sided with us on almost every argument. However, at the end of the day, they did, find a way to avoid reining him in any way. So now we have to take it up to the California Supreme Court. But, at the end of the day, I say we're ultimately going to get justice at the ballot box. And this is what the recall is all about. And it's about folks like Sue who have, stepped up and been a leading voice to bring change to the state. So thank you so much, Sue. I really appreciate the kind words.
No, I'm serious. Please run. Please. There's so many people that want you to run. And I'm telling you, please run. I'm on my knees running. Please run. You've got to do it you give us hope, Kevin. You give us hope. You're fighting this egregiousness. And you know what? You're the only one that has our voice. The people, Americans, people. Please, Kevin, please consider running. Please.
Right. Sue, I want to officially go on record and say, everybody out there, we are not locking Kevin in the room tonight until he makes a decision, okay? So everybody out there, we hear you. Listen.
Is that unofficially officially?
It's unofficially
now
officially.
I know what
we're
this is
gonna
all
roll
about,
the break
Mike.
here in a second. After the break, we're going to have Eric Early talk a little bit about another lawsuit, election integrity. We're going to talk about something very sneaky that the Secretary of State's been up to.
Sure.
And we're going to take your calls. 1-800-222-5222. It's Friday nights at the French Laundry. KABC all the way from Mexico to Oregon and around the country. RecallGavin2020.com. Contribute. We need your money. 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 Welcome back, everybody, to hour number 2 of Friday Nights at the French Laundry, where the cuisine is always about California politics and the main entree being the recall of Gavin Newsom. If you're just tuning in, let me tell you missed an exciting first hour. I'm surrounded in a studio by Orrin Heatley, Randy Economy, Kevin Kiley, Eric Early, and about 2 or 3 camera people here and a lot of lights, etc. And the reason this is such an exciting week is because
The people did it.
the people did it. 1,716,000. 1 million. So I can't even say the number.
It's
so
1,720. What is? I don't know.
It's 1.7 million.
That's a lot of-
change.
it's a lot of
Actually
signatures.
verified at
A lot of
2.1
signatures.
million collected. We the people have done it. And by the way, in the first hour, you also missed Leo Terrell. Listen, call in at 1-800-222-5222. You could talk to Kevin Kiley, Eric Early directly. In addition to us, we want to hear what you think about this. I want to flip to a couple subjects right now in the next 10 minutes or so before we flip to a couple callers. One subject, and we're going to do our entire town hall on that on Wednesday night next week, and we're going to do our radio show on it next week, is election integrity. Eric Early's involved in the election integrity lawsuit. Eric, we just heard about Kevin and James' lawsuit that they filed against Gavin and his reign. But tell us a little bit about the election integrity lawsuit that I think's in federal court now, right?
Yes, sir. As you know, Mike, I was the official Republican candidate. I ran against Adam Schiff for Congress in the last election cycle. And there is a lawsuit filed now. It's led by the Election Integrity Project of California. They're the lead plaintiff. And then there's a couple of us former congressional candidates that are also plaintiffs. We're not seeking to overturn the last election, but what I call is we're trying to do an autopsy on the election. We're seeking to do audits of the various computers. The defendants in the case are the people that run the elections in most of the counties in California. Newsom is a defendant. Secretary of State is a defendant. And we also want to throw out what we claim are the unconstitutional emergency orders that were entered into by Newsom and by the former Secretary of State Padilla during this election, everything from the universal mail-in balloting and to they totally relaxed the rules on how to check the signatures on those ballots when they came in. So, Election Integrity Project is a great organization. I'm proud to be part of the case. It's pending in federal court. We got a really good lawyer leading the charge, and we'll see what happens. But, people up and down the state, I don't care what political party you are, people are concerned about what's going on with our voting, and I know I certainly am.
And before Orrin gives us order up here in 1 second, I want to say something in case you weren't watching this week that the Secretary of State did that affected Orrin, affected me, and affected all of you out there, which I just found absolutely appalling. Under the Freedom of Information Act, Judicial Watch had requested and gotten about 504 pages of email and communication on the elections, where the Secretary of State's office was openly communicating with Facebook, Twitter, Google about posts they didn't like. Now, whether or not the posts are right or wrong, these were people's opinions. And what we had here, if you're not following this story, look it up, is big tech communicating with California government under the auspice, I might add, of the you might call it the Espionage Act or the act where they're supposed to watch for election fraud. Mm-hmm. Instead, what they're doing is they, in my opinion, were suppressing free speech.
Order up.
So let me add something on that, Mike, because this is really important, what we learned. I've been arguing, and this is actually a piece of legislation that James Gallagher and I have proposed, that social media companies ought to be subject to the First Amendment for a few reasons, but one of them is that they've essentially become arms of the government in that they've been, and in this case, for example, they're taking down content on the orders of the government.
Yeah,
and
isn't
so
it? I was appalled when I read this.
Exactly. If you hire a hitman, even if you don't carry out the job yourself, you're still liable for what's done. And it's the same thing if the government is telling a social media company to engage in censorship on its behalf. That's a violation of the First Amendment. So
Absolutely.
I think we need to move towards, and this is one of the most important issues of our time, I think, is the idea of maintaining a free society, which has a freedom of expression as its linchpin. So that's a bill that James Gallagher actually proposed. Ironically, they tried to limit our ability to speak on our own bill in committee about freedom of speech. And then they passed a version of it, but it was completely watered down. But there's going to be a lot more on this, I think.
Maybe you should put up a Facebook post
ahead.
about it. Oh, never mind.
I wish I could, but they took my Facebook profile down in September.
Yeah, and I want to stress here for everybody there, my esteemed guest tonight, I am a bit weird. I read all 504 pages of this week, all right? This
Mighty
is
impressive.
not a conspiracy.
That's mighty impressive.
No,
I say.
I think it's weird. It is weird. But this isn't a conspiracy theory. This is actually where you could see where they communicated. And in fact, I think the most damning thing in there was a Cal Matters reporter had requested information consistently on this. And the Secretary of State's office in writing was responding to Facebook saying, we're not comfortable with this reporter's line of questioning.
What?
Yep.
That's right.
I want you to think about that. Our state government was uncomfortable with being transparent with the press. Randy, how do you feel about that?
Well, as an investigative journalist turned the political pirate, I have to tell you that stinks. And I don't even mean that in the slightest terms. Listen, we live in an open and transparent democracy. Anything an elected official does, even if he puts out a memo to his staff and sending many instances, that's public information. And the public is entitled to see it. I remember doing a campaign a while back against a lady who was running for mayor here of Los Angeles. And I wanted to go ahead and get a copy of her calendar. And it was like they pushed us off for 5 months. And then finally they gave it to us, and no reason why. The reason was because 85% of her calendar was dedicated to political events, to run for mayor. And of course, she lost. But again, it's peeling back that onion. We got to keep peeling the onion back because in the middle there's the bloom, and we got to get to the bloom.
Which is what I alluded to earlier in the show. I want to put in, and I talked to you about this during the week, and I'm going to talk openly about this on the air. I want to see more Freedom of Information Acts, which, by the way, pretty much any citizen can put in, because I'm real curious, Eric, we discussed this earlier in the show, about the kind of communication that really takes place between our governor and these really big companies that get these no-bid contracts, contributors paying these behested payments. This much money and this many transactions, you can't tell me that there's no record of it. If there's not, there should be.
I'm telling you, what we're hearing tonight, it just, what's going on up there stinks. As I said earlier, from an attorney's standpoint, at a minimum, there's an appearance of impropriety. But to all of us with common sense, we're hearing these stories, and we know something very bad's going on up there. We're dealing with a corrupt administration, top to bottom. And frankly, if we had an attorney general in this state who cared about the people, not who cared about protecting the corruption. If we had an attorney general state who cared about the people, there would be serious investigations going on all this stuff. And we have an attorney general election coming up November 2022, and we got to get somebody up there who is an outsider to start digging through what we're talking about tonight.
And remember, the one thing they can't censor is our voice on the air, which is why we need donations. This is a listener-viewed radio show, and that's what I will order up, which I will in a second, or hold that bell.
Hold that bell.
We're asking for donations at recallgavin2020.com. It's we the people that got the recall done. We the people need to keep this show on the air, and that's your cue. Boy, that sounded real ominous, but that's okay.
Three rings for three separate donations, two of them by the same person, Stella in Fountain Valley. God bless you. Thank you so much for your generous donation. And going forward, Joel, thank you in Laverne.
Oh, I love Laverne.
I'm glad you do.
It's a place to live.
It is a place to live.
That's right. It's a beautiful place.
Both very generous donations. And Stella, you have once again outdone yourself. God bless you.
Okay, everybody out there, remember, the things we discuss are up to you. We put, if you will, lay out the menu for the night. It's important to note that recallgavin2020.com, the movement of the people started by Orrin Heatley and continued by us, is your movement. That this is just the tip of an iceberg of things we need to change in California. And we need you to contribute to keep this going. We need you to go to our website, get merchandise. We need to keep this movement all over the state because as a caller's going to tell us, we come back from break, there's a lot more work to be done on the recall. We simply have the first phase done. We, the people, have spoken. We're going to continue to speak after the break. It's Friday nights at the French Laundry, KABC, up and down the coast. Recall Gavin2020.com, 1-800-222-5222. Welcome back, everybody, to Friday Nights at the French Laundry, where we've announced tonight that on Wednesday at about 4:07, it was served up to the state by the Secretary of State memo that we have 1,716,000 validated, verified, stamped, if you will,
have stamps?
signatures out that are calling for the recall of Gavin Newsom. And by the way, if you're keeping track at home, that's close to an 80% verification rate done by the people of California. I'm pointing to you, Orrin, because I'm expecting some words of wisdom.
We have callers waiting. They're stacked up.
All right.
They have
Tell
questions
customers,
for
right, they're
Kevin
getting the
Kiley.
maitre d'. The maitre
Eric
d's
Early.
rambling too much. Why don't we go first to Sharp from Monterey County? There is more work to be done on the recall. Tell us what you have in mind that we should do.
Oh, thanks, you guys. I don't know how you keep plugging along. It's amazing.
Lots of caffeine.
But anyway, let me tell you what we did last night. We had a huge banquet for all of our, the majority of our really hardworking volunteers. And what we did, and we all got together, it was so touching. Just people from all walks of life. I mean, it was just unbelievable. We just all bonded. We had so much fun. We did it at El Torito, I believe. But anyway, we went over phase 2 of the recall. The phase 2 of the recall, we're not done yet, guys. We have to go out and we're registering voters. And what we're doing, instead of a petition signing table, we're having tables for generic registration to vote. And why are you going to vote on the recall ballot to recall Gavin Newsom? We're passing out reasons to people and getting them to register to vote and to already get out the vote and have that in their minds that we're not over yet. So that's what we're doing. And I want to give an example. There was a young girl who's married to a military fellow. It's a young family. And she was there last night. And let me tell you what she told us. She told us that somebody broke into their apartment in broad daylight. The guy walks in, says he's a workman, takes a shower, and luckily her husband wasn't home. And the police came, and the police officer said, "Oh, I want to tell you, that is we know who he is. That's one of Gavin Newsom's convicts that he just let out of prison." So my point is, it's going into what he's doing. The psychopath is doing in Sacramento is going right down to our communities. So, this is really bad. But anyway, phase 2 is coming up, everybody. Are you there? Are you listening?
We're listening intently to you,
clear.
as a matter of fact.
Okay. You're so quiet. Oh,
Well,
my
I know.
gosh.
Well, it's rare we are. And we're not. But listen, let me tell you something. You bring up an important point, and God bless you for what you're doing. Because the next phase, why we're sitting here, and you put it, how do we keep going? Let me tell you how we keep going. Everybody out there, you need to vote yes. And everybody out there, you need to vote. Kevin,
Yes,
Eric, if he runs for office, everybody, you need to vote. One side is taken over California by the worst trophy of all, non-participation. And let me tell you something. In this recall special election coming up, you have to get out. You have to vote yes. You have to participate. You have to show up.
This is one event that everybody gets a participation trophy. Yeah, I think, you know what? Up until now, you put it in perspective. Until now, I didn't like the notion of participation trophies, but in order to get to this prize, people have to participate. They have to get out. They have to vote.
Okay, but everyone's asking, when does this all occur? And I can't answer that. So can you help us?
Yeah, actually, the probable date will probably be November 2nd is what we're probably looking at right now, but it could be the 9th of November or as late as the 16th. But I think what I have been talking to members at the Secretary of State and the people that we have been talking to in the media, kind of our official responses anywhere between the 2nd and the 16th of November.
Oh, thank you.
You know,
Okay.
Shar, one thing I want to add is that, one good thing is that we're going to have a lot of very good, qualified, serious candidates.
Yeah, we are.
To choose from, and there's some that have gone out there and they've already announced, and there's others that are waiting in the wings. There's going to be some clowns like last time, and maybe even a dancing bear or two this time. We'll see.
Well, I was just in Mexico. It's so funny. I was just in Baja with my husband for few weeks, and they're all asking down there in Mexico, what's going on in weird California? Who's that woman running or man running? What's her name? Jenner. And they're all saying, what's going on up there? I said, it's crazy California. What do you say?
Only in California.
But you know
Right?
what?
Yeah.
I want to go back to what you said to begin with. No matter who's running, and I said this at the beginning of the show, no matter who's running, no matter what Gavin calls us, and he's calling us names, and by the way, if you missed it this week, I think it was this week or last week, the Democratic Party at their caucus actually voted whether or not they should continue to call us names. Right? I mean, that's basically what they were voting on.
They did an actual resolution at their state convention last weekend, and the resolution was, shall we call this the Republican coup?
Right.
recall.
The recall.
So
Right.
what was the outcome of the
And
vote?
should we continue? Should we continue with the talk track we have of calling them names? Now the outcome.
Yeah.
Now I'm happy to say for the Democratic Party it was close. However, they do want to continue to call us names.
Yeah, but you know who didn't want to call us names?
Yes,
who led
I
the
know.
charge? The person who led the charge who did not want to call us names. Christine Pelosi,
God
who
bless her.
is the chairman of the Progressive Caucus and a national committee woman to the Democratic National Committee.
Is she
She
related
wanted
to the
to
other
just lay
Pelosi?
off as being known the Republican
she's Nancy's
coup.
daughter, and she even said on Twitter, someone's like, "Oh, it's only people who are against Newsom to start with who signed the recall." Christine Pelosi, daughter of Nancy Pelosi,
Yes.
said, "No," she said, "that's false and outrageous."
Right.
And I know plenty of people who told me they voted for Newsom but signed the recall.
Correct.
We have
Why
one.
is she
there's
coming out
one
that way?
online right now.
Can we-
Bianca,
There is, and
Bianca
let's
is out
bring her
there. She's
in.
online.
Hey, let's
and,
get Christina.
yeah.
Let's
No,
we have an
Bianca-
open invitation.
Bianca.
Can introduce yourself
Yeah,
to the crowd, Bianca, as if
I
they
will
have
introduce-
never heard
hello,
from
Los-
me before.
Bianca.
Oh, yes. Okay. Very nice. Thank you. Hi, Bianca Von Krieg of Bianca for San Francisco, who's going to bring down Nancy Pelosi like a Mexican bank.
Wait.
And,
You're running for Congress against Nancy Pelosi as a Democrat.
yeah, I got time. Why not? You know,
Okay.
and the convention was really interesting this weekend. We talked about that, but it really didn't consume much of the time about the recall. Maybe it took about 15% of our bandwidth. Really, we're more concerned with more important things.
But that's a lot of bandwidth, though.
15%. We're trying to get Medicare for all and fix the environment, and then we'll
Did you have to go through a sensitivity training there also before the?
sensitivity. Oh, I've been through so many sensitivity trainings.
Yeah.
I think I have sensitivity training summer school coming up.
I want to know why Christine Pelosi is saying things that appear to be harmful to Gavin Newsom. What's the reason? For
I
it?
think even
Because she's stealing it from me. That's why.
yeah, and I think
Christine came out early and strong, saying that if Gavin Newsom wasn't polling favorably during the special election, they would pull the plug on him and entice or coerce him to possibly resign his seat so they could maintain their supermajority death grip that they have on California.
it's fascinating. It really is to me.
Is her mother prompting this? That would really shock me.
Well, I don't know. Let's ask Bianca since she's from San Francisco.
Yeah, no, her mother is doing things the other way around. She's on the other side of the pole.
That's
She's
what I figured.
actually leading the charge of bullying against other Democratic candidates who want to get into the race.
But you know
And,
what?
You know, we outnumber you guys 3-1, and they still don't want to play fair, and I'm not down with that.
No,
You
no,
know,
no,
and you know
no.
what, Bianca, what's really-
I claim some of the middle ground.
Yeah,
Bianca,
yeah.
Okay, so I mean, you guys may outnumber us in some polls like that, but I think the middle ground, the NPP out there, they may lean a little bit more conservative than they're given credit for.
Bianca, we'll debate that later. But I want to make the point before we roll to the next caller. We have to roll the break here. Something very interesting. And you should. I'll ask you. And I
Wait a
never.
minute, hold on, Bianca. Do you have your website up?
Yes.
What is your
Bianca
website?
Bianca for SanFrancisco.org. And I just want to let everyone know, there's a lot of groups popping up in the wake of this recall, but Orrin Wyatt Earp Heatley was the original.
There you go with the
You
name
know,
calling again.
There he
It
goes
must be
again.
a Democrat thing.
There she goes again.
Everybody-
You are wide open.
Everybody, talk down to him. His wife literally kicked him to the curb. He has to work from a trailer
I
outside.
heard about that.
And he did it. And he's going to go down in the history books, and that's the way it should be. And everyone in Southern California should know that. He's the guy who
Absolutely.
did it.
Absolutely.
He's like 15 shades of
And you
red
know what?
right now.
You know, one thing that I just want to point out is that the fact that there's a common thread between Bianca Von Craig, Orrin Healy, Mike Netter, this recall, and other like-minded people. There are a lot of people. Craig Gordon up in the Kern County area, lifelong Democrat, voted for Gavin Newsom, voted for Bernie Sanders twice, is a very avid, strong supporter of the recall. And you know, I've always said that, you know, this is a nonpartisan effort. People from all walks of life, from all cultures, all ethnicities, all races have come out to speak in favor of this recall, no matter what brush Gavin Newsom wants to paint it with, no matter what color he wants to paint it. And you know, there is no amount of name calling and disparaging remarks that is going to put this to bed.
If he was on the level, guys, he would fight fair.
Yeah.
Bottom line, he would let any Democrat who wants to come in. He wouldn't resort to this ad hominem BS. You know, he would just fight fair and say, look, I've been a good governor, and here's my record, ... and that's all I have to say on it. He's not doing that.
Bianca, it's always a pleasure talking with you.
Thank you very much. We're gonna roll the break here. Then we're gonna go to another San Francisco caller after break. Friday nights at the French Laundry. 1-800-222-5222. Help us recall Gavin2020.com. Pay up. Welcome back, everybody. The restaurant's open for 30 more minutes of California politics, recalling Gavin Newsom, our favorite thing to serve up. Before we get to ringing the bell, we have another caller from San Francisco, the recall groupie, Magdalena. How are you doing tonight?
Hey, guys, it's me. It's Magdalena. How y'all doing tonight?
Magdalena, good talking to you.
Hey, listen. I got an announcement to make.
Uh-oh, what's the announcement?
I'm a Wild Star woman.
You're a what?
Oh, Wild Star. All right.
Nicholas Wildstar
Libertarian,
has been helping out with the recall, and he's putting his bid in to become governor. He already did it for 2022.
Magdalena,
who is this guy?
I have to put a disclaimer out there now that you've said that.
Okay.
As the chairman of the primarily formed committee in California.
Oh, quit popping off and get to the point.
Oh, I know. He does all that.
we can't endorse or unendorse anybody on our
I know. But Randy mentioned about Caitlyn Jenner, so I thought I'd just put my thing for Wildstar.
There you go. So tell us, but you can tell us, what party is Mr. Nicholas Wildstar running with? A Green Party or is Libertarian? What party is it?
He's going to be running as a Republican.
And what is it? Is that his real name?
Yes, it is.
Nicholas Wildstar is his name.
His brother is Ziggy
I'm
Stardust.
sorry if I did something politically incorrect.
Nope, you did fine. We'll just move right along. And there is no orders in the kitchen at this time.
What?
So just let Mike know there are no other orders.
I understand. No other orders in the kitchen. Listen.
Is Kevin still with you?
Sort of.
I'm here, yes. Hi, Magdalena.
Kevin, thank you for our private conversation yesterday. It was very delightful.
Yeah, she was giving me a heads up on some of the great efforts she's doing to volunteer in her area and get the word out. So I was really happy to hear it. And we need, that's exactly what it's all about.
That speaks loudly, Magdalena, and thank you for giving me the opportunity to point out just how down to earth and accessible Kevin Kiley is.
Mm-hmm.
And that's something that, this campaign has made itself very proud about.
We treasure it.
Is our communication level. We have one-on-one communications with the public. My phone number's been out there public. People can call day in, day out. But being there in the public, accountable and accessible, is something that is a rarity with politicians these days. And I just want to commend Kevin for being accessible and out there and reachable and, taking information in from his constituents and people in the community. And that's a valuable character.
That's a great point. I think sometimes that we don't really appreciate doing this show. We're a paid-for radio show looking for people to help us sponsor it. Yet Kevin Kiley, James Gallagher, Eric Early, all these politicians, Leo Terrell, who came on tonight, so many people have jumped to help us with the cause. And I can't say how much we appreciate that. The accessibility, Kevin, we've had the folks like you in the legislature. Melissa Melendez has been on our show. It's been absolutely amazing and I'm beyond words as to how literally Gavin Newsom's uniting us.
Yeah, and it's really an honor, Mike, to have the chance to join you. And I think that when you look at the way our Capitol works, I mean, I've been there for 4 years now, and the ability to do anything that's in the public interest, it's so limited because the deck is just stacked against you by folks like Gavin Newsom and the special interests that control him. But what you guys have built with this movement is reshuffling the whole stack deck of our political system. And that's going to make it, that's going to open up a whole new world of possibilities for folks like me to actually try to advance good legislation and try to get the state moving in the right direction.
I think it's interesting to note, too, Eric, like when you ran, right, or whatever you're doing next, the amount of we're trying to do is make the state understand that we can come back, and I don't want to use the term to defeat, but I said this earlier to a reporter tonight. Listen, the Democrats are going to raise about $20 million conservatively just to defend Gavin Newsom. Now, I want you to really think about that. They're going to put forward, $20 million. He's got unlimited. Look, if we could raise $2 to $3 million, I believe our style of politics can help get that yes vote.
Listen, we have a new generation of fighters stepping up who want to take back this state for the people, and that's what it's going to take. It's going to take a fight, and I'm proud to do that in any way I can. I'm really honored, like you just heard from Kevin, that I am so honored to be here with you guys because you guys have given an entire state hope, and it is not easy to give people hope, especially in these dark times, especially in these times where we have literally this Politburo, this one-party rule up there that is under a vice grip of control that we've been hearing about on the show all night tonight. And this hope you've given people is going to spread it is spreading like a prairie fire. And we now believe, thanks to you guys and your incredible army of volunteers, that we can actually take back the state and do what is necessary to rebuild it from the ground up and turn it again into the Golden State. So I'm honored to be with you guys. I'm honored to have been a part of this, and so thank you.
Well, Gavin Newsom's doing everything he can to put that prairie fire out, but shame he already released all the CDC fire crews, so he's got no help.
Ain't got no water left in that tank.
I think that it's an honor to have you here as well, Eric and Kevin, and I think that we are part of the early warning system for California.
And being an older Californian, I want to roll to one caller here, JC from South Bay, who talks about a time. He says when California wasn't, quote, flushing down the drain, when it seemed we had hope every day. JC, how you doing? Or JT, I'm sorry. You're on the air. South Bay. JT. Going once, going twice. Well, there was a time when JT was on the air also, but that's all done.
JT phone home.
JT phone home. Let's go next to Don from Los Angeles, who wants to talk about Democrats and non-citizens, shall we say, quasi-politically correct. But Don, tell us.
Hi, Don.
Hi, Don. How are you doing? We know who you are. I'm going to play with you a bit. Don is one of our major organizers and people who has helped us gather, get your arms around this, as I like to say, over 350,000 signatures in the Los Angeles area. So don't believe what you hear that LA, it's so liberal. Let me tell you something. Most people in LA simply aren't participating. Dawn has participated over 2 recalls since the beginning. She is a true American patriot. After that introduction, Dawn, you better have something really good to say.
Oh, my gosh.
No pressure.
We love you, Don.
Oh, my gosh. We all love you. We thank you for leading this and being such an inspiration to all of us out here. And like you guys have already said, giving us hope because we want to take California back. This is the people's recall. It's not a Republican recall. It's the people's recall, and it's our state, and these are supposed to be our elected representatives. And speaking of our elected representatives, I got a post today from someone that I wanted to verify. Maybe Kevin can tell me whether or not this is true. I had heard something about this a couple years ago, but that Democrats today voted in that non-citizens can use taxpayer money to fight deportation to the tune of expected cost something around $5 million. So we've got people complaining about the cost of the recall, but this is okay?
Kevin, is this something you know about?
There have been various bills and budget allocations for that sort of thing. I don't know the specific one that you're referring to, but I mean your point is well taken in that they talk about the cost of the recall. I mean, you can look at, for example, the EDD fraud, what we could have funded 400 recalls or something like that with the amount of money that Gavin Newsom
ridiculous.
Wasted there. But I think that, your point, your phrase, the people's recall, I think that is exactly on point. And it goes back to what Mike was bringing up earlier. It's worth just emphasizing that you had 49% of the delegates to the Democrat state convention, so almost a majority, 49%, voted not to use this term Republican recall that Gavin Newsom has been using ad nauseum. And this is the delegates to their state convention. These are like the biggest activists for the Democrat Party in the state. And for those folks, even for those folks, Gavin Newsom's rabid partisanship is too much. So I think that, this sort of branding that he's trying to do is really going to backfire. People are seeing through it.
Oh, it's hurtful, hateful, divisive. We are uniting the population in California. And that's one of the things that they have, the short-sightedness of this governor. They just can't see that. We're bringing people together where he and his policies and his procedures and his rhetoric are dividing people and pulling them apart.
And before we roll to break, I want to bring up a point I didn't get to make before. Shocking with 5 people on the radio, but anyway. At the Democratic Convention, Jerry Brown gave a recorded speech. But note, Jerry Brown didn't defend Gavin Newsom or even talk about the recall. I also want to stress that Christine's mom, Nancy Pelosi, kind of talked about the recall.
Would that be his cousin?
No, it's kind of a weird. They have like a weird family thing.
Let's put that down for a second. Before we roll to break, I want to stress, didn't really defend Gavin Newsom. If you watch that, it kind of like, there's a recall. And by the way, it could be a threat to my fundraising or something like that. I wasn't quite sure what that is. Listen, everybody out there understand, I don't even think the Democratic Party is 100%, to your point, Kevin, really behind Gavin Newsom. It's kind of something they've got to tolerate. We're bringing the state
Make
together.
us ring
We're
the bell.
going to roll the break. Contribute. Now, make Orrin ring that bell. Friday nights at the Friends Laundry. We have one segment left. Sponsored by RecallGavin2020.com. Well, like any good restaurant, as we enter our last segment, I'd like to cover not only what we've done tonight, but what we have coming up. Listen, we've had an extremely exciting show tonight. We've had 5 people in studio cameras. We've announced we had 1.7 million signatures verified. But here's some things I want everybody out there to know. Each Wednesday night, we also do kind of a podcast, you might call it. We call our town hall. And we have exciting guests and things, guests like we have now and topics like we discussed tonight for 45 minutes. Now, we are going to try to fuse again that cuisine, if you will, by trying this again on our radio show. Bad news is you'll see my face. The good news is you will see our face and be able to see kind of a podcast fuse for our 2-hour radio show. Now, everybody out there is going, well, I don't know about this. How come I don't know there's a town hall?
We're running a test right now.
Well,
can you do that voice one more time?
I can, and I'm going to tell you why I'm going to do it. If you don't know what's going on with the recall, that's because you have not gone to RecallGavin2020.com and signed up on our email list. Because I hear a lot of people who have been with us since the beginning go, how do we know if there's a town hall this week? What time's your radio show? Is Orrin going to be there? Is he on the road? Is Orrin still on the show? Well, a lot of this. Anyway,
all about Orrin.
It is all about Orrin. You have to, because apparently I'm here every week, because he makes me come. So you have to sign up on our email list. You have to do that to get our communication from us. If you want to find out about Eric Early, Kevin Kiley being on the show, it's really important that you get on our email list so you could find out what we're doing each week with the emails that we send out.
We're very respectful of people that log on with our website. We don't over inundate.
You
them.
won't be spammed.
You get maybe an email from us a week, and that's it. We don't load your inbox up with a whole bunch of junk.
And don't be fooled by people who are trying to make money off of this recall. There's only one official recall, and it's recallgavin2020.com. That's where you got to put your chips in the lake.
What a great point. I got to tell you.
Your donations, and we want your donations to count.
What is the official website and the only official website?
I keep getting emails from other people asking me for money. What is that about?
You know, I was just going to say, as we roll around for the final segment here, giving everybody a chance, because I, of course, have to end it. Eric, it's interesting. We don't see, there's all kinds of people coming out with all kinds of emails requesting all kinds of monies. There's a group right now called Defend the Constitution. I'm going to call them out because, that's the whole thing.
They're not even based in California.
They're based in
probably
New
a
York.
Delaware
It's
corporation.
garbage. I don't want to go there. But I don't even have anybody to complain to, Eric, except you as our attorney. How come no one in California cares?
I'm telling you, if I didn't work, with you guys on this movement, I wouldn't know that half these emails I'm getting for seeking money for the recall didn't have anything to do with it. It is unbelievable, the grift that is going on out there. So focus on just requests from recallgavin2020.com.
I'll have my sandwich without DeMayo.
Oh, you like it dry.
We don't like DeMayo anymore.
He's not a good
on
DeMayo.
our tuna fish.
No way.
So
remember, everybody out there, as we've become a lot more popular, for lack of a better term, what's a fantastic idea, the recall? I've been here the whole time. No, you haven't.
There's that voice again.
I got to do it because I'm trying to keep from getting angry that so many people are jumping on the backs of these hardworking volunteers that have been with us for months.
I have no donation emails at this time, but I am sure I'm going to get some angry emails about you doing that voice. They probably are not going to want you to do it anymore.
I'm very concerned.
You should be.
I don't even talk like a pirate anymore.
I be gar. Listen, everybody out there, recallgavin2020.com is the sole cause, is the main cause. We are collecting money to make sure this governor gets recalled. And if you want to find out more about it, you can buy a book. And who wrote that book, Kevin Kiley?
Well, I assume you're referring to the one that I wrote.
I hadn't thought of that.
Plug the book, Kevin.
Yeah, you can. It's called Recall Newsom. Very, creatively titled. You can just Google Recall Newsom book and you'll find it. It's actually Orrin Heatley is standing right here with a case full of them. And so if you happen to run into Orrin on the road, just ask him for one.
Buy this book. Kevin, I want to thank you very much. Not only did Kevin write it and giving money to the recall for it, I also want to stress, really read the book. It's quite enlightening. And I said this, Kevin, the first time you were on our show. It's fascinating that we get so much attention in national politics about what goes on in the Senate, what goes on in the Assembly, et cetera, in Congress, rather. But we're the biggest state in the union. You help govern 40 million, well, a little less than 40 million this week. Was 40 million. This week, slightly under 40 million people in the state. Yet very little coverage of what actually goes on in the legislature. And reading Kevin's book, I think you will find it quite fascinating about how the state legislature works or doesn't work.
Yeah, I mean, I think that, the typical person, if they knew the level of corruption that exists at our Capitol and how little the concerns of the public and the well-being of the public matters in terms of what happens, they would be absolutely appalled. I know that I was when I became a legislator, and I was expecting it to be bad. But it was even worse. I was expecting it to be really bad, but it was even worse than I thought. And so I think that's one of the tremendous things about the recall is that we're going to have over the next few months among the most consequential months, I think, in our state's history. And there's going to be a spotlight on California politics. And I think that, folks are going to learn a lot about the source of all of our state's problems and how we can turn that around.
And isn't that exciting over the next few months? Before we roll back to the three hosts kind of ending the show here, we have Kevin Kiley in studio tonight, who wrote a book on recalling Gavin Newsom, who had the guts to file a lawsuit against his emperor. We have Eric Early with us tonight, who had the guts to go on a lawsuit filing for the Election Integrity Project. Let me tell you something.
Jeff Roldan was in studio tonight.
Jeff Roldan was in studio tonight, who has the guts to make a film.
Recall Gavin movie?
Yes, it's on our website. And by the way, if you were on our email list, you would see that every week. So remember, sign up for the email list, contribute. I want to roll to Randy, then to Orrin, then I'll close the show before we have to rush to run out of time. Randy, God bless you for all the media you've done this week. Talk to me.
It's been great. I want to let you know that we are starting a fire all up and down California, a political fire.
Yeah, be careful with that.
This morning, I was on a phone call with 5 people who are all Democrats, who are in awe of what we've been able to accomplish here at RecallGavin2020.com, who are now starting a formal recall and a removal of office of the worst city councilman in Los Angeles, Mike Bonin. So it just goes to show it's not about Democrats. It's not about Republicans. It's about people who are angry and want to take their government back at every level.
Absolutely. Orrin, I'm going to roll to you. Do you got any words from the kitchen before we close for the night?
Do you recall why California is in such poor condition? We do.
Do you recall? Oh, my, that's pretty hokey.
That is a little hokey, but it's well placed.
I love that word hokey.
Listen, thank you. Thank you. Give me that again.
Come on, baby.
Okay? Listen, thank you. Everybody out there, keep us going. Remember, we are the people. I want you to think tonight what we've accomplished in the last 8 months. What really has been accomplished here, and give me 1 second here, guys. We have had a lawsuit filed at city and federal court to keep our elections pure. We have had a legislature and his counterpart file against our tyrannical governor. And that's what's just been done. We, the people, have gathered and gotten certified 1,700,000 plus signatures to get our voice heard on the ballot. The fun is just beginning.
Now it's your job to help us get it the rest of the way there.
That's right. Remember, they're going to outspend us. We're going to outwit them if we just get a little bit of money. And I mean that if you're out there listening and you're rich, I'll meet you after the show. If you're not rich, contribute to us any way you can.
Just a dollar here, a dollar there, $3, $5.
Right.
You know what, folks? We've done this on a shoestring budget, and we're going to get this done. And we do need the help to do it. And God bless everybody for everything you have given and those that can.
That's right. We have merchandise. It's important that we get the word out. We must vote yes to recall Gavin. We must take our state back. All up and down the state, everywhere you go, remind people of what's been going on here. Remind them not only have we been suppressed because of his king's COVID rules, how he's taken money. Think of what we've just discussed tonight. Your Secretary of State office has collaborated with big tech. Think of what we just discussed tonight, how his governor, if you will, his emperor, I don't even know what to call him anymore, has gathered $226 million for his pet charities for big companies and then awarded many of those companies contracts. Think of what's been done, but more importantly, think of what we can do, the people, and we've shown it, and we continue. Next week, Friday nights at the French Laundry. Help keep us on the air, recallgavin2020.com. Come back. The kitchen will be open 7 p.m. about election integrity, Friday nights at the French Laundry. Thank you for listening tonight.
RecallGavin2020.com, T20.com, 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 T20.